Okay, right, welcome back to part 2. So we looked at numbers and saying your age, and now we're going to focus on saying your birthday. And so for this, we're going to look at dates. So we're going to start off with days of the week. I've put the words in chronological order. So lundi, starting with Monday, mardi, Tuesday, mercredi, Wednesday, jeudi, Thursday, vendredi, Friday, samedi, Saturday, and dimanche, Sunday. And when I'm teaching this, I like to do it with cards, and I give the children a wee envelope, and in a group or in pairs, they've got the words and they have to put them in order. So I'll say the words and they have to try and find the card and put it in the right order. And I suggest that they listen to the first letter, lundi, a L sound. So even in lower primary, they can start to look at these words and start to read, because we're focusing on the sounds of the first letter. I'm just introducing the words gradually to them and that concept of reading. So once you've introduced them, then you can start to do a little reading activity like that and get them to order them. And then you can get them to play splat or touch, find with their partner, or as a class, you say the word, they find the card, or they splat it by touching it. And you can model that with the whole class using like fly swats on the board, and they have to touch or splat the word that they hear, and they can work against a partner. So they can be practicing their listening, but they can also be practicing their reading. Sometimes with words like this, it can be quite tricky because there's nothing to hang them on because they look very different to English words. So you might like to colour code them. So, you might introduce the words with different coloured flashcards. So here, for instance, a different colour for each day. We've got dimanche here, it's purple, mardi's light blue. And that might help learners. You might also like to have a week in colours. So the children could create their own week, or you could create it with them and decide on the colour that they want to have for each day as a class, for instance. And then every day you can say that colour and say the day of week that's associated with it, to repeat it and embed it in daily routines. There's a little video clip here of Mr. Innes just practicing the words. It might be nice to set for consolidation as a homework activity, or share it in class, for instance. So once children are familiar with hearing them, maybe starting to see the written words, they can also start to think about any similarities they're seeing between the words, trying to develop those literacy skills. What do we notice, and being language detectives and finding patterns. So for instance, they all end with an I. Unlike English words for days of the week, they don't have a capital letter. So those might be some of the patterns that they see. And if you're really interested, you can start to look at the etymology and look at where days of the week come from in Romance languages, and the links. So lundi linking to Luna and the moon, for instance. So there are lots of roots of the words coming from mythology and coming from different areas. It's going to be interesting to explore that. And once the children have maybe got the words, they can start to make up their own little card game. So they might play Snap, they might play Pairs, they might say, I'm thinking of a day of the week, and they have to guess it and find the card. So just trying to encourage them to have fun and be interactive. So practicing the days of the week, there's lots of good songs on the internet, such as Anna Lay, getting the children to sing along. It's got the words as well, splitting them up into groups and getting them, to sing it, competing with each other, who can be the loudest, for instance. I like to do days of the week aerobics, so you associate a word with a movement. So lundi might be, I don't know, a star jump. Vendredi might be jumping for joy because you're happy it's the end of the week. So trying to think of a story potentially to link the words. If you do cards, you can put them, as I said, in an envelope, play Pass the Parcel, play the Alain Lelay song as background music. When the music stops, they have to take out a card and they have to say it in French and in English. You could read a story to the children and then get the children to put their hand up when they hear keywords for such like days of the week. So in Power Language, we've got Camille va au marché. Every day of the week, she goes to the market and she buys different fruit, similar to the Hungry Caterpillar, or Jacques Le Gourmand. So different stories can be used to pick up on days of the week. I've already suggested linking with a colour. You can also link with a number. Number 1 is lundi because it's Monday, the first day of the week. And Le Facteur, a playground game. So Le Facteur is a bit like Duck Duck Goose, and there's a little video clip here where you can see a class playing it. And it's got a wee song, so the teacher could just sing that, the children could join in with it, and you have a circle and the children go round the outside. The caller goes around the outside and drops a wee envelope. They're the postman, and they drop a wee envelope, and they the other children then have to see if they've got the envelope behind them, and if they have, then they have to chase the postman around back to their the place that's empty. And it's got the days of the week, so the children can join in once they know the days of the week. Okay, so months. I put a little video clip to Learning with Thomas for this one, but you could also introduce them with the song, Alain Lelay's song, and you could get the children singing in different groups. Each group could have like 3 words at a time, for instance. Now, when I introduce the months, again, I like to introduce it with wee cards, but this time I give them the cards and I ask them to order them without me teaching them the words. And the focus here is trying to get children to see that actually they can work words out using their knowledge of English, because so many of them are similar. And then I get the children to think about what they notice about the words. And they have a really good discussion often about patterns. So like September, October, November, December in French all ends with that RE. So very like the English, just the other way around. We have all of them start with the same letter as they do in English. The one that's completely different often is August, août, excuse me. People think that one sounds the most different, although some children often say juillet as well. So I'll just go through them. Janvier, février, mars, avril, mai, juin, juillet, août, septembre, octobre, novembre, décembre. So it can be quite nice for the children to create their own little rap or song, or clapping rhythm with the words to practice them and share that with the rest of the class. So in terms of saying dates, we then put it together. We use the word c'est, it is, c'est. And then we use a number and we use a month. The only number that is different is the first, which is le premier, the first. All the others are just the number. They don't have second, third, or fourth. So we say c'est le 2 juin, c'est le 3 juin, c'est le 4 juin. So it's quite straightforward once they know the pattern. And you can give children dates. You can get the children to write dates out, and they on paper or on whiteboards, and do like what I call translation partners, where they have to translate it. You can also combine it with bingo, create a bingo card. The children could create their own, or you can create it for them to practice. You can go back to the bottle lids, put a date on the bottle lids, or put numbers, months on different bottle lids, combine them, and then they have to say that date. So then we can look at what's today's date in French. Now, lower down in primary, the teacher may well be saying this, just like they might say the month, and they might write it on the board, but you probably wouldn't be expecting the children to be saying it. But what you could do is play games with them. For instance, the yes/no game. So you could say to the children, "C'est lundi? Oui ou non? Oui ou non? C'est mardi? Oui or no?" So you can go through the different days of the week, and you're the one that's doing the saying of the date or the day, and they're just having to listen. So they're not saying anything. So that's quite an easy way in. You do the same with months, obviously. And then you can move on to looking at the day and the date. So, aujourd'hui c'est, today it is. Aujourd'hui c'est lundi, oui ou non? C'est mars ou septembre? Is it March or September? C'est le 7 ou le 3? Is it the 7th or the 3rd? So you see how I'm giving them clues. I'm not just expecting children to tell me what the date is. I think that's really important to scaffold and to support them. It's really important, particularly to differentiate and extend, and with a multi-composite class. You might have children that can immediately say the date, but these are some clues that can help them. And as always, having the support on the board to help them. So if we look at birthdays, so once we've said the day and the date, we can then turn that into looking at birthdays. And there are a couple of different ways that we can ask this question. Quand est ton anniversaire? Quand being when. Anniversaire, not anniversary, but birthday. Quand est ton being your. So when is your birthday? Quelle est la date de ton anniversaire? What is the date of your birthday? So that there's easy because the children will know that word in English. And c'est quand ton anniversaire? When is your birthday? Or literally, it's when your birthday. So they're all appropriate, whichever one your class or your learners find easier. Mon anniversaire, my birthday, mon anniversaire, c'est le 5 décembre. Now, children might say that whole expression, but you could just ask them to say the date itself. They might just say 5 décembre, le 5 décembre, c'est le 5 décembre, mon anniversaire, c'est le 5 décembre. So that gives them a whole range. So you can see the progression there. Et toi, and you, et toi. That's much easier than saying the question. So the teacher can ask the question originally, get a pupil to answer, and then the pupil can say to somebody else, et toi, and then they can answer. So it can go around the class, and you can use a softball to help with that, or just, asking the children to ask somebody else. I've given a couple of example activities here. So you might want to listen to Billy the dog tell you about his birthday. So that's the Little Green Mouse website with lots of lovely little PowerPoints and little stories, often with animals. So that's quite nice. You can go back to using puppets, whether they're big puppets or little puppets, getting the children to ask each other their birthday. Give one, get one. So the children write down a day or a date, and they have to get one from somebody else. So the idea would be that they give one away and they get one. So they'll writing down, they'll come back maybe with 3 dates. You have to set a parameter for it. And they'll be walking around the classroom asking those questions. Cue cards, that's a bit like the bottle lid, so prompts. So you have something with a date on it and they have to say that. Stand up, sit down. So you would maybe say who has a birthday in, and you might say the months. So Mars, so everyone stand up if your birthday's in Mars. Avril, May, so they sit down, standing up and sitting down. And you could do the same thing with numbers. So whose birthday is on 13, so just the actual date rather than the month. So with older children, you might get them to do a birthday lineup where they have to ask each other questions and get into their order from the January through to December. So that's quite tricky. Inside and outside circle, so 2 circles, inside and outside circle. And the children ask the person opposite them, so inside and outside together, they ask opposite them when their birthday is, and they respond, and then they do it the other way around. And then the teacher will say, outside circle, move 1 pace to your left, for instance, okay? And they will do the same again. Yeah, the teacher could say, move 3 paces to your left. So they move around 3. So it's just a way of practicing the vocabulary. On a birthday chart for the class, you might get all the different months or a calendar, created, and the children will write their birthdays up to show who's got a birthday in which month, so that then you can wish them joyeux anniversaire, happy birthday. Okay, so I've gone through some of these activities. There are other ones on here that I haven't mentioned. So echo is just saying the words, repeating them perhaps in a different way. So really good for like lower primary or early years. So I might say, ah, and they might say, ah. You might say, mardi, mardi, mardi. Saying it slowly, quickly, loud, quiet. So miming, as I already said, like with the aerobics for the days of the week or the months. So coming up with some sort of way of remembering the word, creating a mime. So Mexican wave works really good for anything that's consecutive, whether that be numbers, whether it be months, days of the week. So that can be done as a whole class, like with numbers to 31 or 35. And it can be done with days of the week in a small group, for instance. So they're going around, they each put their hands up like this, like a wave, and they say their word. So lundi, mardi. So it looks like a wave. Pass a word or phrase. So they could be passing a word or phrase around their group. So everybody chants the word, particularly good in lower and early years. So lundi, 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 lundi. And you can pass a flashcard around. If you want, older children could have a phrase. C'est lundi. Yeah. C'est lundi, c'est lundi. Can do the same thing, but rolling a ball at the same time or throwing a ball. So take it outdoors, maybe bring in some PE. Finger puppets we've talked about. Separate the words. Onze assassin. Joining in with a song and listing the words from the song. Pass the bag or pass the envelope. We've done the dice. Think, pair, share. So when you're doing any kind of discursive activities, trying to get, particularly with older children, getting them to think about it first, then pairing up and discussing, and then sharing it with the whole class, just so everyone's accountable and working together. Sometimes I like to get the children to shout their answer out. So who can be the first to say something, or everybody, I want you all to tell me your birthday all at the same time, and I'll see which one I can hear, who's shouting the loudest. 1, 2, 3, go! And they all say it in French. Some musical greetings. So, this is a walkabout activity, so you put the music on. So it could be days of the week or months of the year, or happy birthday in French, for instance. And when the music stops, they meet somebody and they have to have an exchange. So they might ask them the question, what's the date today? Quelle est la date aujourd'hui? Or they might ask them, c'est quand ton anniversaire? When's your birthday? Or quel âge tu as? How old are you? So it's just a way of building a conversation, questions and answers, and getting them to revise the vocabulary, focusing on talking and listening. Okay, here's some plenary activities and follow-up, that things you could do with children, but also things you might like to do with yourselves. So different challenges. Mr. Innes has a whole series of challenges. There's also ones that they can access through Quizlet. So these are good for individual work in upper school, like using Chromebooks or as homework, or you can create your own ones using like Quizlet or Wordwall, for instance. There's further support there for yourselves, looking at dates, so putting dates into context, and then maybe looking at festivals and key dates in the year. There's a podcast. High Five French is aimed at learners. It's a little girl who's learning French in France, and so that's quite nice. They've also got little video clips. And Coffee Break French has little videos of people being asked their age. So again, that's more for upper school, but it's authentic native French people speaking. So some different things for you and your children to try, have a go. The key thing is repetition and just using the language regularly and building it into your daily routines.